TFA fam, it's your boy Kev back again with another video. Today we're doing another throwdown where Robbie's going to get beat down once again. Today we're going to be discussing Deontay Johnson versus Chris Godwin, where one is going at 410, the other one is going at 411. As Cody would say, ding ding, get in the ring.
Ding, ding, let's get in the ring. I love that. This one's not even going to be fair. That looks and sounds like a close ADP, but I think people absolutely understand that Chris Godwin is the player to take over Deontay Johnson. Godwin was the wide receiver 2 in 2019. If we go back to just last year, he was the 15th wide receiver in points per game. That was tied with Allen Robinson. What was the big issue, right? It was injuries, right? He was hampered with injuries throughout the season. And I think that is where you can buy the injury dip, where he's even going lower than he should be. He is just a talented guy. He's super special, and he's tied to a fantastic quarterback in Tom Brady, and he is Tom Brady's favorite target when he was on the field. So this is an offense that throws 38 times per game. They return all of their starters. They're basically the same team that we saw last year. And so they're going to be just a high-powered, high-passing volume offense. So I can't imagine that, at least in the passing volume, that they decrease at all. So let's look at Chris Godwin's volume in his own right? Because we have the question will be, is Antonio Brown take away some stuff from him? Do they feed more to Mike Evans, somebody else? And I don't think that happens. Chris Godwin is super efficient with his targets. He caught 77% of the passes thrown his way from Tom Brady. He scored 7 touchdowns in just 12 games. So we're talking about a guy that if he gets in the range of 115 to 125, which isn't a ton of targets, it's going to be probably a top 20 in targets. He's going to be more efficient than most guys because he's getting over 75% of those targets are turning into catches. And then this is going to be an offense that I think scores, again, 38 to 40 passing touchdowns with Tom Brady. So you take that on the flip side, Deontay Johnson, he couldn't even crack top 20 with the offense that the Pittsburgh Steelers had, where they were the number 1 in pass attempts in 2020. Basically, they threw 42.6 times per game, which was just an insane amount. It was basically what the Cowboys were doing the first 5 games when they had to come back from all of their big deficits in their games. So this is basically an offense where I think they take a little bit of a step back passing wise. I don't think Deontay Johnson sees 144 targets, but even if he does, he only caught 61% of them. He only had a 10.5 yards per catch. So he's less efficient with his yardage. He's less efficient with his targets, and he only had 7 touchdowns on those 145 targets in 15 games. So that's even less efficiency scoring the football. So this isn't even close for me, Kev. You are have an uphill battle right now because from a touchdowns, catches, yard standpoint, Chris Godwin takes it 3-0. You're up.
Oh, you're silly. So listen, this one's pretty simple for me. I love Chris Godwin, the player. Always have been a Chris Godwin stan since he was at Penn State University. Loved him coming out. I prayed and wished that he would have left Tampa Bay and went on to a different offense, because this offense is a crowded bunch, right? Between him, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown. And no doubt you can make the same argument with Deontay being, there with Juju and Chase Claypool. Very much the similar situation. But this is where I value Deontay, is his role and the opportunities that he gets. Because if you look at Deontay Johnson last year, some of his numbers are being a little bit skewed because of the 2 games he had where he was hurt and he barely played. If you take a look at the old game log in weeks 3, he got hurt. He played he ran 10 rounds, had 2 targets, barely played, only played 24% of the snaps before leaving, getting hurt. And then he missed after that. And then he came back and tried to play week 5. He literally played, I think, the first series and then left again. So he has that 0.9, 0.8 on his resume, which really brings down the rest of his fantasy production. However, if you look at it, 7 of the 13 other games that he played in, he scored at least 20 fantasy points per game. The dude was very efficient. Yes, he had a lot of targets to go in his favor. However, we're still talking about a player who did miss time, who basically only played in 13 games. I know it says he played in 15, but he barely played in those other 2 games. And I think he's just going to get better here in year 3, kind of that year 3 breakout, something similar to what we saw with Chris Godwin. We're talking about a guy who, again, like you mentioned, out of 140 44 targets, 6th most among all wide receivers. Now, I do not think that the Steelers are going to throw 43 times per game. It's just not going to happen. I do think that number comes down. I still think they can be somewhere a little bit more balanced. But I also think people are writing the Steeler offense off for dead. And they're all looking at this offense like it was in the second half. And I think that's a little bit of a mistake. I do think now with Big Ben having a full offseason of being healthy, and I know he's 39 years old, but all reports, I haven't heard any reports out of camp that he's looked terrible, that he looks like he's washed or anything like that. So I think that he could return a little bit more closer to the Big Ben that we used to see a few years ago. And I think that's great for this offense. I think this offense can maybe lose in volume, but gain in efficiency. We saw this offense in the first half of last year look fantastic, right? Chase Claypool, Deontay, even Juju was doing his thing. And then in the second half, the wheels just fell off, right? They went out and they changed the offensive coordinator. However, the thing that remains the same is one, yes, Deontay had that run where he was dropping passes left and right. He led the league in drops last year with 11. I think that was more of just a concentration. I think he had a little bit of the yips, which you see from players time to time. But overall, I don't give a shit about a player's drop rate. If they have a lot of drops, it usually means because they're getting a lot of targets, which means, and honestly, the biggest indicator of how good a wide receiver is their targets, right? Generally speaking, the best wide receivers is going to get the most targets. It's just generally how it works. But he was also efficient. He had 387 yards after the catch, which is impressive for him. And so I do think that is something we should be looking at as well. 88 receptions. I know he only had 924 receiving yards. That's because his target was very low, but he did get deep targets. 18 deep targets, was 30th among all wide receivers. The problem is with Chris Godwin was the same thing I talked about. Yes, he only played in 12 games, and some of the numbers were a little bit better there. But I still think that if you look, once Antonio Brown came on in the second half, we saw Chris Godwin starting to lose opportunity because of Antonio Brown. And that's my problem, is that I think them two kind of cannibalize each other to an extent of, I just don't know if I just don't love Chris Godwin as much as I did. Deontay is clearly the number one target in this offense. I don't think anything's going to change from this year to last. I think he is going to see the most targets, and I don't know if it's going to be particularly close. And so I think if this offense can become more efficient, then I think that just overall helps Deontay Johnson. And I think you just see somebody take that third-year leap. Every year he has gotten a little bit better and coming better, and I just think this is the year that he's going to do it. So it's not a huge argument between one side or the next. I just love Deontay Johnson in PPR format. The number one weapon in this offense. I think he is going to get see a bump in efficiency than what he did not see last year. And I think people have left this Pittsburgh offense for dead, which I think is a big mistake.
Yeah, I think the word efficiency is what you threw around a lot. And that's the big question for me, right? Like, does he get more than 10.5 yards per catch, right? He has to have a better ADOT. I think that's the first thing, because his volume, I agree, will probably be more than Chris Godwin. I agree that Antonio Brown probably weighs in there. Obviously, he's playing their 17-game season instead of the 8 games that he had last year. So we probably don't see Godwin sniffing the 140-ish target range. He's probably going to be in the 120 range, where I absolutely think even if they do regress back with their passing, Deontay Johnson will probably be 135, 140 again. If crazy happens, he can maybe get 150. But the problem happens with what I would say his efficiency is his catch rate, right? Like the drops, sure, like he catches most of those drops. I don't think that really changes his catch rate that much. He just doesn't. Him and Ben are not the more accurate pairing compared to Brady and Godwin. And I think that's what's going to hurt him at the end of the day, is that you're going to see more catches from Chris Godwin. You're going to see more touchdowns from Chris Godwin. Because that's another thing we need to remember, is that Mike Evans scored 3 times from the 1-yard line. Like, can he do that? Is he probably the touchdown guy in that offense? Like Chase Claypool is the touchdown guy in the Steelers offense? Yes. But those are really, really rare, where you score 3 times from the 1-yard line, where those touchdowns can go elsewhere. And again, we have to remember Chris Godwin only played 12 games and scored the same amount of touchdowns as Deontay Johnson did in 2020. So basically what you're saying is that he has to get better in an average depth of target. He has to get better in a catch rate, and he has to improve his touchdown rate to get to the point where Chris Godwin was. And if he does all of that, yes, we have an argument. Other than that, it's a Chris Godwin sweep for me.
Well, you would be wrong but it happens a lot. It's no big deal. It is what it is. It is what it is, right? But like I said, I'm just buying Deontay and the volume that I think he's going to bring. I'm selling the fact that I think that Chris Godwin is going to be fighting for a lot of targets between these guys and being sort of a redundant asset. And I think their offense is going to regress a little bit. I don't think it's going to be as red hot as it was, especially in the second half of the season last year where it really started to take off. Because if you look at Chris Godwin, I think he only had one game last year from weeks 1 through 16 where he had over 20 fantasy points. And that's just not what you're really looking for. I mean, if you're looking for a guy who's going to get you 13 to 15, fine. I mean, that's great. But like I already mentioned, Deontay had 7 of 13 games that he played in were 20 plus fantasy points. And that is what we're looking for. Because we're looking to win those weeks. We're not looking just for a guy who's going to be steady Yeti and get you 13 to 15. And is really going to be relying a lot on that touchdown volume. So, so let us know in the comments section below, which side are you on, Deontay Johnson or Chris Godwin? It's sad for me to be going against my boy. I love Chris Godwin. Love Chris Godwin, the player. But in the meantime, let us know in the comment section below which side you're on. Be sure to hit us up in the Discord. You can find that in the description down below. And until the next time, peace.